Hello and welcome to Game Gumbo. Today we're unboxing Tidal Blades, Heroes of the Reef from SkyBound and Druid City Games. This is a game for 1 to 4 players. It does play 5 with the expansion that's already out and plays in 60 to 90 minutes. So Tidal Blades is in general a worker placement game. It does have some dice rolling and also some card drafting in it. This is the deluxe edition, as you can see here on the box. But we'll be talking about the differences between this edition and the retail standard edition. The first being the size of the box itself. So the deluxe edition box, as you can see, is very long or wide. And the retail box is sort of your more typical box size. So if that's a concern for you, you may actually prefer the retail box. Also, I did want to just point out that the art on this is stellar, which is kind of indicative of Druid City Games in general. They really have nice artwork, at least in my estimation. So here we see everything you get in the box. We got a couple little pieces here. Here's the explanation for what's different between the deluxe edition and the retail edition. In the retail edition, you get standees. Deluxe edition has miniatures. The deluxe edition has these plastic action tokens, whereas the basic edition is cardboard and then cardboard resources, as opposed to the 3D resources in the deluxe version. Here is our rulebook. So in Tidal Blades, you're playing a character, and you'll have a character board, as you can see down here, and you are attempting to outscore other competitors in a tournament that is called the Tidal Blades Tournament. And you're going to do that by going to different locations in the tournament. And those locations will give you typically resources, allow you to buy things, your typical worker placement aspect, but it'll also allow you to attempt challenges to impress the judge and to earn points to be crowned the champion of the tournament. You're going to play a total of 4 rounds, but each round you'll have multiple actions that you can take. We also have an almanac. I believe this is sort of just like a cheat sheet of the different cards and special abilities that you get access to over the course of the game. Every character has a deck of cards that give them abilities that are unique to their character, which is kind of interesting. There are 4 characters in the base game, and then there's a 5th in the 5th player expansion. But again, this is just all explanations of the different action spaces. Here's a different setup for 2 players. Also the rules for the solo mode in the back of here. So a nice addition to be able to have just that quick reference for all the different aspects of the game, and then just a little cheat sheet on the back as well. So here is all of our cardboard, or at least 1 page. There should be more in here. Let's set that aside real quick. We've got a art and lore book. This is going to be part of the deluxe edition. This won't be in the retail version. Just look at a few pages of this. Some really great artwork to go along with the cover art, but also just explaining the world that they've built for this game. So this is looks like this is going to be our only sheet of cardboard. Now, some of this you'll still use with the deluxe edition, but these resource pieces and the standees and even this first player token right here, those are all going to get replaced with the upgraded components. But these little hit markers here, you'll still use. These you'll use whenever you do damage to a monster to determine or to show which character did damage to that monster, because that does have an effect in the game. But this is nice and thick cardboard, double-sided. I'm going to go ahead and punch out the rest of this real quick. So we got all our cardboard pieces punched out, all our resources here, and our player standees. Again, if you have the deluxe version, a lot of this is going to get replaced. But for the retail version, I mean, there's nothing wrong with these standees. I really like the color palette to them. They're nice and thick. They're double-sided. So those are nice. We also have our hit tokens for each of our character punched out. And this one, I'm not certain if they actually provide a upgraded version of this one. So I'm going to hang on to that real quick until we get that far. So let's start with here on the right, which is kind of all our fancy stuff. Get rid of some of these organizers, which are just in here to keep things from rattling around. But that's nice of them to include, so we don't have a problem where something shows up and it's been rattling around inside the box. So here we have a little game tray insert for our different dice. Dice are a big part of the game. You'll be using dice to attempt those different challenges over the course of the game. And you've got a nice little organizer here. Now, I don't believe that this organizer is included in the base version of the game, because from what I recall, the dice in the deluxe edition that we have here are actually a little bit bigger than the retail version. So I don't think the retail version actually has this organizer, which is obviously a nice perk for the deluxe edition, to have this on hand and just to be able to put all your dice in there and know where they're all at. So the dice themselves are what you use whenever you are taking different actions, whenever you're trying to do those feats that you're getting points for at the end of the game. You start with sort of these novice white dice that are in the center of the tray there, and they've got the different stats on them. And these are really nice dice, really well inked. Or I guess these are the heat wrapped, I believe. And I think the question mark is a wild. But you'll start with the white novice dice, and then over the course of the game, you can upgrade them. You can upgrade them to the red dice, which have more of the yellow and the red stat results on them, or you can upgrade them to the blue dice, which have more of the green and the blue result. And then you can upgrade them even further to elite dice. And then finally, very last, the guild dice, which have either one or the other resource on it exclusively. And then you have 3 of these, I'm going to call them danger dice. I forget exactly the term they use for them, but essentially whenever you roll a challenge, you're going to be rolling one of these dice depending on what round you're in, and the red X's are bad things that you essentially have to account for. And then we've got one more D8 that's used during the course of the game. So that's our dice. This right side over here is most of our deluxe components. So let's go through the rest of this. We've got standees just for the cardboard standees. So even if you get the deluxe version, you can play with the standees if you want. We have a little dice tray here representing the Tidal Blades arena that you can roll your dice into. And again, this is for the deluxe version. This will not be in retail. We've got plastic miniatures that replaces our standees for the deluxe version. So you have a miniature now to represent your character. A nice miniature as well. It's nicely detailed. Each miniature also comes with a bust. And this will track your victory points, essentially, throughout the course of the game. If you are playing with the retail version, instead of having this, you'll just use one of your hit tokens to track that same stat. Of course, we also have a nice organizer to put them all in. And then our player tokens. So each player will have 4 of these. You'll start with 2, and then you'll gain more throughout the course of the game, kind of like Lords of Waterdeep. And when you go to a location, you will put your person there, but you'll also put a token underneath them. So when they move, their token is still there and blocks off that location. We've got a replacement to the first player token. So instead of that cardboard piece, you have a really weighty metal piece. A replacement for the judge. So there was a standee for this guy, and now there is this miniature. And for the ship, there's also a miniature. Lastly, on our deluxe side over here, we have containers for our resources. So replacing all of our cardboard resources are these 3D resources. You've got your shells. And your fruit resource, which are kind of like a soft plastic, almost a little spongy. Kind of reminds me of the berries from Everdell. Now that's mostly going to be all the extra pieces that you would get in the deluxe version. So as we switch over to the left side here, this is going to be the same as what you would get in the retail version. Also, this kind of illustrates to you how big this box is and how much smaller the retail box is going to be. So we have our game boards here, which are in some bubble wrap. So instead of using one big player board, they decided to kind of separate the board into several different smaller pieces. So here is the champion board, which is basically just tracking victory points. It will assemble together like a bit of a puzzle, like so. And this will be where either your hit marker or your miniature bust will go to track your points. Also, it's got a round tracker here. So for instance, you would have your little hit marker here to denote where you are on this board. Also in the retail version, this board is not this 3-piece collection. It's just a smaller board that goes off to the side. So that is a little bit different with the retail version. But then we have our main game boards. And you can see here, they have spots for your workers to go. So these are your worker spots. And these boards will just be set up around like so. I don't really have enough space here to show you all of them, but you can see the different boards and you see the different locations that you can go to and what you get at going to those locations. So if you go to the plaza here, you get 2 fruit and you also get the first player marker. This is also where the ship goes, and the ship goes around the board whenever you go here. So you advance the board and you collect the reward of what location you go to. And when the ship advances, you also get the bonus that it lands on. You've got sort of the main board here, and these will track the 4 rounds. It also tells you which one of those danger dice that you use. So you use the clear one on round 1, the yellow one on round 2 and 3, and then in round 4 you use the red one. And also when you get your extra tokens, which are your extra actions. And then we've got a few more locations. You also have a spot where the judge goes. So one of the things you can do in the game is complete these challenges, which is where the dice rolling comes in. And I'll show you those when we get to it. But you can only complete challenges for where you go. So if you go to Drosta Ring, one of these locations, you can complete a challenge that specifically uses this symbol, has that symbol on it. Also, the judge can be there. He's not always there. He moves around. But if the judge is at a location when you go there and you complete a challenge, you get a bonus sort of for impressing the judge. So this is essentially your game board, except instead of one big board, you've got half a dozen smaller boards that arrange around your table. We also have another miniature here. I believe this is the round tracker. And this should be, as far as I know, this is a deluxe component. So this won't be in the retail game. But we have our player boards here. And it's nice that they already come assembled because they have these wheels on them. And I'm used to assembling wheels. So it's nice to not have to do that for once. There are 4 stats in the game. They do have different uses. Your focus is basically how many dice you can roll whenever you're doing a challenge. So you start with the ability to only roll 1 dice, but you can always pay fruit to increase that at the time that you are rolling dice. So it doesn't increase your stat, your wheel doesn't go up, but if you are attempting a challenge and you're at your starting spot here, you could pay 1 fruit and now you're rolling 2 dice instead of 1. You also see on the outside here, it tells you when it increases. So the first tick will increase you up to 2 dice, but then you've got to increase it another 3 times before you get to 3 dice. It's not directionally proportionate. You also have this little blue icon with the hexagon. That's victory points. Anytime you see that, that's in-game scoring. So wherever you are on the wheel at the end of the game, you'll score extra victory points. You have your spirit here. Your spirit affects certain roles or abilities whenever you activate them. So you may have an ability that says do X, where X equals your spirit. You have resilience, which determines how many of your dice you can refresh and upgrade at the end of the round. So even if you've rolled 3 dice for a turn, if you're only refreshing 1, then you're only getting 1 back. And then you have your synergy, which affects, allows you to get additional character cards. So you start with 1 character card, and then as you progress, you will gain more character cards. And whenever you gain cards, you'll draw from your deck. I believe it's 2, and then you'll choose one of those to keep. But those are special abilities that only your character has. Your character deck is unique to whatever character you're playing. Let's see, we've got a score sheet down here, and another little area here with some cards. So let's go ahead and take a look at these. So one of the locations, the character, or I should say the location boards that we looked at earlier, is where you can go to fight monsters. Basically, monsters invade every round. And if you don't defeat them, they attack the town. So one of the things you can do is you can go to this location and you can fight monsters. That's where you're going to use your little hit tokens. So if I go here and I roll a red, I put a token there saying that I did that point of damage. And that's important because if this creature attacks the city, you will take the invasion penalty if you have not done a point of damage. So if you did a point of damage, you're safe. If you didn't do a point of damage, if this invades, you're going to lose a character die. Also, when the monster gets defeated, when all of these spaces are filled up, anybody who's done damage is going to get a reward. And the reward for this one is to gain an initiative die. That's one of those white dice. And then the person who did the last point of damage is going to get the kill bonus, which appears to just be a victory point. So we've got a deck of these, and there are differences. So we have hard monsters, and we have easy monsters. But there's 2 spots for monsters, so you'll have 2 out at a time. You can potentially go there and fight them. The problem with fighting monsters is any dice you use during the course of fighting a monster, you lose permanently. They go back into the sort of the general pile. So that's our monster cards. Over here we have some small cards. So these are hidden challenges that you will get at the beginning of the game. So at the beginning of the game, you'll just get dealt, I believe it's one of these. And if you complete this by the end of the game and there are variable rewards, you'll get a certain number of extra victory points. And it looks like these are all just based on completing a certain number of challenges. Or this one has your trait dials have to be a certain level. And then we have the rest of our cards up here. So here are our challenge cards. And these are the things that you'll be trying to complete throughout the course of the game. You see that these here have character portraits on them because you'll start with those. And then the rest of them, they'll just be a collective deck that you'll draw from. And one of the locations you go to allow you to gain more of these challenge cards to your hand. The way the challenge cards work is first you have to be at the location. So you have to be at this particular location. The boards will have one of these symbols on it. So remember earlier when we were looking at the market, it had this little symbol on it. So you have to be at that location. Then you're going to roll your dice and you're looking to match the symbols on the card. This symbol here on the left is mandatory, so you have to have one of those. The symbol on the right is extra. You don't have to do it. If you don't do it, you still get the victory points. But if you do the extra one, you get to increase your stat in that particular skill. So that is the synergy skill. So if you did this one and you had 2, you would get +1 to your synergy skill. You get to rotate your die up 1 spot. Whereas if you just do it once, you don't get that stat increase, but you still get the victory points. And obviously there are easy and harder versions of all of these challenges. And then quite a large deck of additional challenges that will just come out randomly. It sort of creates like a market board that you can choose from whenever you go to a particular location. And then you have judge challenges, which have to be attempted wherever the judge is. And then back here, we have some more difficult challenges. We have some market cards. So the market, again, is that location that you can go to. And whenever you go there, you can gain cards. You pay for them. The cost is on the left there. And then you gain whatever's on the right. Here are our character cards. So you get a card for your story, just explaining your character. And then it kind of gives you a guide to how best to play that character. Every character starts with a shell shield, which is a defensive mechanic. It allows you to block those X's that come off of the challenge dice that you have to roll. You got some upgrades for that. So there is one card that they suggest you start with, but if you choose to, you can just draw at the beginning of the game. I think it's draw 3 and then choose which one you want to start with. And then every time you upgrade your synergy to be able to draw additional cards, you'll draw 2 and then keep 1. So here are all the cards for Axel here. And then we have our other character, Cayman. Dust. and Echo. And then finally, we have some plot cards. So we have plot cards and stunt cards. So the stunt cards actually are one-time use cards. You'll gain them throughout the course of the game, and then you can play them on your turn for their one-time use. So these are like little extra powers that you can gain throughout the course of the game. And then plot cards as well. So that's it. That's everything you're going to get in a copy of Tidal Blades, Heroes of the Reef by Druid City Games. Again, this is the deluxe edition, so if you have the retail version, there'll be slight differences.